Good evening, YouTube. It's me on the way, George Page, come to you live on YouTube. Um, we're just a few hours away from 2022, and then it's just this. I just saw this a few hours ago. I would have did a post earlier. I was working on some stuff, and I just want to tell you that we just lost a legend in comedy, one of the funniest, greatest women ever lived in this world, one Miss Betty White. Now, Um, Betty White is a legend. You if you grew up in the 50s, if you grew up through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even up to 2000s, she is just been this woman's been around, and especially in comedy, star of stage, screen, television. I mean, she did it all. I mean, and this afternoon it's confirmed that she passed away, and you believe she was 99 years old, and she was just ooh, just couple of weeks away from her 100th birthday. And 100 years is as I think the Bible said, 100 years is the essential of the life of a man, of any human. Sometimes some live a little over, but some live a little shorter. But she lived nearly 100 years, and things she has done. Now Betty was born um, January 17th of 1922 in Illinois, Oak Park, you know, and she grew up like most other young women, back in that time. Her full name is Betty Marion White, and she went by Elizabeth, but she shortened her name to Betty. She was the only child to her mother Christina, and her father Horace, and she was just the apple of her eye, and her family, moved to California in the when she was a year old, and she grew up a good part of the Great Depression. If anything, the Great Depression, it was one of those toughest years when the market crashed, and it was difficult for people to feed their children and their families. It was tough, and she survived that. You know, Now she attended high school in Beverly Hills, and she was she had a nice wild. She was a great child. She enjoyed wildlife vacations with her families. She enjoyed life. And she had a great talent. By the 30s, she was working on in radio. Back then you had TV, you had radios, and she was a little girl. And then she was working on a series called Empire Builders, which was a podcast in December 22 of around about 1930. Now she graduated from school, and she sung for the Merry Widow and experimental television show, and she went on to do some other stuff. Her career started growing. She did movies and still did radio. That was her first love. She did a lot of broadcast shows, and by the time the 50s was coming up, the evolution of television. She became a star in several small shows. She was also on very popular game shows during this period of time, and later on, she had the opportunity to have her own show, which was called the Betty White Show, and it was a public show, it was in syndication, and later it was picked up by NBC around about I think around 52, and it was great. And it was changing life with Betty Elizabeth, but I think she changed it to Life with Betty. It was kind of a variety show, and on the show she had up and coming black artist, young a black man by the name of I'll get his name right, um, Duncan. It was he was on a show, the Brady White show on NBC, and she had a man by the name of Arthur Duncan. He was a black performer. Back in those times, racism was still high. You still had Jim Crow rule and everything else, and the South didn't like the idea of this black man being on the show because the NBC distributed the show in southern states. I remember there's somebody. This is where people tell you that. Because of black people on television, most white people in the South didn't like the idea of seeing a black person, especially singing and dancing and performing. But Betty stood her ground. She said, either cancel my show or let it go, forget about the Southern. And the show kept on going for a good while till later on it was cancellation. And then Betty did some more stuff later on. She went to ABC for a bit. She did some talk shows and stuff. Now she was married quite a few times, but the love of her life was her first husband, Bill. Um, sorry, Alan London. Now she had two husbands before him, but this is the only one where she took his name. She went by Betty White London, and she met Al in '63, and they were married for a good while. She never had children of her own, but she was the stepmother to his three other children. His Alan's wife passed away, and her and Alan was together from '63 to his passing in '81. Now, around about the '70s, Betty was doing a lot of stuff. She most notably was on the series Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was starred the late Mary Tyler Moore. And from '73 to '77, she played um, Sue Ann Nivens. She was the guy who was always chasing after Cary Grant. And on this show, she won an Emmy for that, for that performance for that character. Her and Betty White, Ed Asner, you know, um, Ted Knight. I mean, I used to watch that show when I was younger, and some great comedians and great actors. And Betty was one of them. She was just a star. It's just her character was just like a, well, her character was very, very risque at that time. And later on, Betty, even though after the Maritime Illustrated ended, she kept on doing, appearing in movies and guest appearing in TV shows and talk shows. She was a guest on the Johnny Carson show, and she was good friends with one of the funniest women around, the late Lucille Ball. You remember Lucille Ball? Ricky and Lucy. I love Lucy and all that. And then she was also good friends with Carol Burnett, and she made guest appearances on the series show, with Vicki Lawrence, I forget, it was Mama's Family. She played the um, eldest daughter, Lauren. I think it was Lauren, I remember. And that was a show, she was on, the original show was on ABC. We had Rue McClanahan who played um, Vicky's Thelma Harper's sister. I forget the name of the character. The show was on for a couple of years till it was canceled and got syndication, but she still played that character. She made appearances, in syndicated series every now and then while she's still doing her other work. And the close relationships with friends over the years have garnered. And then she moved on by the '90s. By the '80s, she was on one of the most popular shows that I used to watch on Saturday nights on NBC, and that was The Golden Girls. And she played Rose Nyland. She was from what was that town? Dang, I forget the name of that town. She's always talk about it every time she told little stories. And that series starred her, um, Beatrice Arthur, Rue McClanahan, and Stella Getty. It was a crazy show. I used to love it. And you got to think about it. This is another show that she got to work with Rue McClanahan, and Rue McClanahan also worked with B. Arthur back on the series Maud, in the '70s. And this show won Emmys. The show started from good part of the late '70s up to the early '90s. But then the show eventually got canceled. It ended, and then Rue and Betty moved on to a new show called Golden Palace. It starred Cheech Marin. It had Don Cheadle in his early career, but the show didn't last that long. Eventually, I think it lasted about a year or two. And eventually, got canceled. And Betty kept on working, doing TV, movies, missing guest appearances, and then around about 2006, she started a movie. What was it? I forgot the name. It was I want to be. She was right. It was the movie with Ryan Reynolds and I know her name. Let me. It was the one where I know the name movie. Give me a minute. I didn't watch that movie. It wasn't my. It was one of those love movies, but it was her, Ryan Reynolds, and oh God, I know her. But she remember she played the grandma in that movie. That was like about in the early 2000s, and she kept busy. I mean, making guest appearances on several talk shows, game shows, TV shows. I mean, it was she had a even though she was in her I think mid to mid 80s and still being active. And then around about the I think 2010, 29, she made a commercial for Snickers for the Super Bowl. I remember it's a commercial. It was this crazy commercial, you know. And then she really hit when she became, I think, the oldest guest on Saturday Night Live. And I think I've seen that one. She was crazy. It was really entertaining. I mean, her characters, her acting, even at her age, she was still a great performer. And by the 2012, she, actually by 2010, she was on the series Hot in Cleveland. Starred Valerie Bertinelli and some other people. I forgot the other name. I think the girl who used to play on Frasier and some other chick. And she did that show from 2010 to I think 2015, 16. And she even got another Oscar. I mean, sorry, another Emmy for Best Supporting Actor in a Series. I mean, that's pretty good. She has a list of Emmys, awards, stuff like that. And by the time she hit 90, she was still going. I mean, even after a while, the series ended and she kept busy, still having guest appearances on movies and TV shows. She even met in 2012 when she was like 90 years old. She met President Obama. And that was a great thing because I think really, I think he really respect her. She respect him, and just being around such these two great people. And she did some other stuff. She did voice for Toy Story 4. She did several other, projects here and there. She had wrote books and stories, and she did a lot of stuff. She played the role of the happy homemaker from so many years, and knowing that, she had a couple of husbands, three husbands, and never had a family. But that's the thing about it. She had a family. She had her husband's uh, three stepkids, and that was her family. You know, but she was declining her years, being that she was 99, and her passing away was probably of natural causes. No details of it yet, but that's a possibility. And she was just 17 days, just about. She was born during 17th. Today is the 31st. She was just 17 days away from her birthday. I can't believe that. It's just 17 days. But you know what? She was a great lady, and I was a fan of hers. I used to love her on the Golden Girls. I used to love her on, Mama's Family, and and even remember when I used to watch Mary Tyler Moore. Her and Gavin McLeod didn't like each other, and truthfully, was the last of both of those TV shows. As you know, most of the cast. Recently, this year I did a video about Ed Asner passing away. Then Gavin McLeod who passed away. I mean, most of the Mary Tyler Moore stars are gone. Then the Golden Girls are now the last of the Golden Girls, and she was a Golden Girl. Rest in peace, Miss Betty White. You're in a better place. It's me all the way George Page, aka sorry, just see me all the way George Page. Don't like, subscribe. I'm out.